afternoon, Kurt Capra here with you for today's daily recap, Friday, April 7th. Hope everybody had a great week. And, after everything that happened between overnight and this morning, getting the jobs number that came in, big disappointment there. Market opened down a little bit, but, all in all, it was a really tight trading range with very little movement overall as we continue to see things getting squeezed between the 20 MA and the 50 MA with regard to the S&P here. You can see I got a chart of the SPY up, and you can also see how we continue to get compressed between these two moving averages in these very tight trading ranges that we've had over the last couple days. So, the silver lining is this isn't going to last forever, and hopefully next week we'll get a resolution one way or the other as this decides to either break out to the upside or down and head lower to retest this prior low here around 230, 250. So that's really what we're going to be watching for as we move forward. There's not a whole lot to say in terms of the action. It was slow, and a lot of that is just simply due to the uncertainty that exists. The Syrian situation, as I said, the surprise disappointment in the jobs number, or to the degree that it was surprising, was taking traders back a little bit. And interestingly enough, also the VIX, right, closed up here today. So you generally don't get the VIX and market closing in the same direction because the VIX is an inverse market internal. So if it's moving up, generally that's going to be bearish for the market, and that's not necessarily the case here today. And so I want to point it out, bring it to your attention, because as I said, this generally does not last for long. And so what the VIX tells us is fear and uncertainty are increasing, and the market has not yet responded to that. So we'll have to pay attention to how that unfolds as we move forward into next week. Also, gold. Gold gapped up this morning, but continued to then sell off throughout the day, closing right into and around the gap fill, but it also gapped up above this downtrend line. So we'll see if it can reverse course next week and begin to push higher, which would also indicate the the flight to safety, if you will. And at that point, you'll likely see the market pulling back in if we do start to see a more significant rally in gold. So that'll be something to pay attention to as well for next week. But again, right now, the way we're finishing out this week is really just kind of more of the same, setting things up for what might be better movement next week. And I feel like that's that's been kind of the storyline that we've continued to have to play out over and over as these puzzle pieces continue to get turned and moved and trying to fit them together, but there really has not been a clear picture painted at this point. So again, a day at a time. You continue to be cautious, but not overly so. You use this objective caution to where it's not to say you don't want to get involved with trades, but as things don't go your way, or if they do, you just follow your plan and don't overstay your welcome, right? Don't go into hope mode with how this action has been playing out. So looking at banks, we looked at them earlier. They really didn't do anything. You got JP Morgan trading inside yesterday's range. Bank of America, pretty much the same story. So not a whole lot of movement there. IBB actually had a pretty good day, as it was able to trade above yesterday's high and close higher, but not above the 50-day moving average. So again, starting to see some signs of life in certain areas and weakness in other areas. Airlines have been under pressure recently. We had a bit of a rally over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. And so you've got UAL here that's really just been in this range, consolidating sideways. You've got DAL, which you can see has been displaying greater weakness. So we'll see if that starts to weaken some more. LUV actually had a pretty strong day here today, but right under the 50-day moving average. And then you got JetBlue, which has really been the shining star, if you will. Now, this is a regional airline as opposed to a quote-unquote major airline, but this one is definitely looking far better. And then you got your, Apple, not much doing here today. Facebook, same thing. Tesla still looks good overall. So again, as I said, pretty quiet day to finish out the week, and overall, I mean, it was an interesting week between the Fed minutes that came out, the disappointing jobs data, and what's going on just in terms of world events. But even with all that, the market has held up well, hasn't really collapsed in any sense of the word. So, you could look at that and say, well, it's holding up really well and looks to be getting ready to move higher. But then the flip side of that is, as I said, the VIX is starting to inch up. So you might start to see some more of that fear creeping in. But at the same time, we're just seeing very little in terms of volatility. So we'll see what happens over the weekend. We'll see if that brings about some decisive movement one way or the other as we look forward to next week. But right now, as I said, it's a day at a time until we get some more clarity here. So hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will talk to you next week.